So a quick review of what it is that we did. Remember that a chemical reaction tells you how many moles will react. So this chemical reaction tells us 2 moles of KClO3 are going to break down into 2 moles of KCl and 3 moles of oxygen. So when we look at this, we are asked how many grams of oxygen. So I'm going to identify what I want, which is grams of oxygen. I also am given grams of KClO3, so I'm going to identify what I'm given, which is my grams of KClO3. Now remember, the chemical reaction doesn't tell us grams of either of these. The chemical reaction tells us how many moles, and so I need to calculate how many grams that would be. So according to my chemical reaction, I have 3 moles of oxygen. Well, I can calculate that 1 mole of oxygen is 32 grams. Well, that would mean that if I do 32 times 3, that 3 moles of oxygen is 96 grams of oxygen. So that tells me that I need 96 grams of oxygen to get produced, and I need to know that relationship in compared to KClO3. Well, again, we need grams of KClO3. So this says 2 moles of KClO3. Well, I can calculate how much 1 mole weighs and then multiply it by 2 to find out how much 2 moles weighs. So now that I have that information, I can actually create a conversion factor. So we're going to create our own relationship. We're not going to be using these relationships. We're going to use a relationship from the chemical reaction that we found. Well, we need the unit that we're given on the bottom. Well, we're given grams of KClO3. So we're going to put the 245 grams of KClO3 that we calculated the chemical reaction needs. We're going to put that on the bottom. And because we want to get to grams of oxygen, we're going to put our grams of oxygen on the top. And so when I take 3.75 times 96 and then divide it by 245.1, I get 1.47 grams of oxygen. Again, the first thing I want to do is identify what I'm given, 30 grams of KCl, and identify what I want to find. Again, remember, the chemical reaction tells us moles. Well, we're given grams of KCl, so we need to know how many grams of KCl this would be. So I calculate 1 mole of KClO3 is my first one on here. So my grams of KClO3 is 122.55 grams, but I have 2 moles. So 2 moles of KClO3 would weigh 245.1 grams. I need that because I need to find out how many grams of KClO3. I'm given grams of KCl, so I'm going to calculate how many grams of KCl in this reaction. It says 2 moles of KCl. So I'm going to take the molar mass, I'm going to multiply it by 2, and that tells me 149.10 grams of KCl. So now that I've calculated these two, I can put that into a relationship here. According to my chemical reaction, I am going to need 245 grams of KClO3 and for every 149 grams of KCl. So since I have calculated that relationship, I can now create a conversion factor. The material that goes on the bottom is going to be the same material as the material I'm given, because remember, I want those materials to cancel out with each other. So that is why I put the 149.10 grams of KCl on the bottom, so that grams of KCl cancels out, because I always start with what I'm given. I'm going to put the material I want to find on the top. I want to find grams of KClO3. So I'm going to put that on the top, and that, according to my calculations, I need 245 grams of KClO3, so that goes on the top. So we do 30 times 245.1 divided by 149.1, and we get 49.32 grams.